Good morning, everybody. How are you today? What a lovely, schmaltzing, schwitzing day. It's going to be a warm one. In any case, I'm sure many of you have been to temple on Friday night. Or if you haven't been to shul on Friday night, you might have heard our renditions of the pre-Shabbos singing on Friday afternoons here on Facebook Live. And one of the most beautiful prayers we say in our Friday night service is the Lechadodi, which is how we welcome in Shabbat. And we all sing it, probably many of you sing it in your shul or in your home, or you heard us sing it, Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. It's a beautiful words, come my bride, let's welcome the Shabbos, let's come towards the Shabbos and let's welcome the Shabbos. It's beautiful, and it goes through a bunch of stanzas. It's made by a very famous Kabbalist. It was written, I think, in the 1600s or the 1700s. His name is Reb Shlomo El Kabatz. He is buried in the old cemetery in Tzfat, near the holy Ari HaKadosh, the great master. Now, one of the stanzas of Lechadodi, the first one, goes, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmiyanu kela meyilchad. The word Shamor and Zachor were said in one word. They were told to us by the one God. That's what he says. And he continues to sing about that. Those of you that know the words are familiar with it. Where does it come from? What does it mean Shamor v'Zachor was said in one word? How could that be, first of all, and what's it referring to? So in this week's Torah portion of Chanan, we have a lot of important things. First of all, we have the Ten Commandments, the second rendition of the Ten Commandments, as Moses is repeating it to the Jewish people before he passes. We also have the Shema, which maybe I'll speak about tomorrow or Thursday, the most sacred prayer in Judaism. But it's interesting because although we have the Ten Commandments repeated again, our rendition of it in this week's Torah portion, there are little nuances that are different. And one of the nuances that are different from the first time we read it in Exodus and the second time we read it now in Deuteronomy, where Moses is repeating it, is that the first time it says, when it comes to the laws of Shabbat, Shamor Zachor et Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho. Remember the day of Sabbath to keep it holy. And the second time we read it in this week's Torah portion, it says, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat. Watch and guard the Shabbat. So the rabbis right away ask, the Talmud discusses this, and Rashi brings it down. What's going on here? Is it Shamor or is it Zachor? Is it remembering which is said in Exodus, or is it watching or guarding which is said now? And the Talmud tells us something fascinating. The Talmud says, which Reb Shlomo Al Kabatz brings in the Lechadodi, that Shamor and Zachor were said in the same, simultaneously, in the same breath, in the same word. You heard both. Something that's impossible for the human mind to fathom. God, in his miraculous infinite, he said Shamor and Zachor in the same time. Wow, isn't that amazing? Could you ever say two words at the same time and people should hear both of them? No. It's a great miracle that God did. But big deal, I don't understand. Why would God do this miracle? We know that God doesn't do miracles in vain. What's the point of Shamor and Zachor being said in the same thing? Either say Shamor or say Zachor. Why do we need both of them? And the answer is a very important one, and is really relevant to us as Jews who want to celebrate Shabbos in Judaism. You see, there's two aspects to Shabbos. There's the beautiful spiritual, family, communal part to Shabbos. The Shabbos comes in, the mother lights the candles, she brings a little extra light into the world. The father kisses his children, the mother hugs each one of her precious diamonds. The mother becomes a queen, the father a king, the kids a prince and princess. It's a very special moment. Everything stops and we eat delicious delicacies and we sing songs and we celebrate Shabbos. That's the Zachor. That's the remembering the Shabbos. That's the beautiful part of it. But then there's the Shamor. There's the guarding part of Shabbat. There's the tedious part. Don't cook. Don't do any work. Don't put on the light. Don't make a fire. don't do business. There's a lot of don'ts. That's the shamor, the guarding the Shabbos. Throughout our history and ages, it's been very easy for Jews to keep the shamor. Who doesn't want to have chopped liver and kugel and gefilte fish and chicken soup with matzah balls and family community time, celebrating together? Everyone wants that. But the shamor, the guarding the Shabbos, the don'ts, has been much harder. Does it have to be so restrictive? Does it have to be don't do this and don't do that? Can't I be on my iPhone? Can't I call my friend? Can't I drive over for a party? Can't I go out on Friday night? Why all the don'ts? In fact, Louis Brandeis, the first Jewish judge, appointed in 1917, I think, right? His family emigrated from Germany, like many in the first wave of immigration in 1850. He wasn't an observant Jew, but he was a very proud Jew. He never hid his Judaism. And in fact, he was an ardent Zionist, one of the earliest ones. And Louis Brandeis, who fought for social justice, that was his landmark, was very influenced by an uncle he had, whose name was Dembitz. I'm forgetting his first name. And Dembitz was a pious, observant Jew, who was a very religious Jew, and in fact was a great abolitionist who fought against slavery, and had a tremendous impact on Louis Brandeis' life. In fact, he had such an impact on Louis Brandeis' life that Louis Brandeis changed his middle name David to Dembitz for his uncle. And in one of his talks, Louis Brandeis speaks about his uncle and about Shabbos. And I want to read you from what he wrote. And he says, I recall vividly the joy and awe with which my uncle, Louis Dembitz, welcomed the arrival of Shabbos day and the piety with which he observed it. I remember the extra delicacies, lighting of the candles, prayers over a cup of wine, quaint chants, and Uncle Louis poring over books most of the day. And I remember, more particularly, an elusive something about him, which was spoken of as the Shabbos peace, and with which years later brought to mind the passage from Addison, in which he speaks of stealing a day of a life to live. Uncle Louis used to say that he was enjoying a foretaste, a Vorspeise of heaven. I used to think, and do so now, that we need on earth the Jewish Shabbos without its oppressive restrictions. Louis Brandeis was right. He says Shabbos is a beautiful thing. If we could only have Shabbos without its restrictions, without the oppressive part, what do we need to have all the no's? And throughout the ages, it's been much easier for Jews to keep the Zachor, to remember the Shabbos. But it's been so hard to keep those restrictions. But what people have forgot is what the rabbis told us 1,700 years so wisely that Rashi brings, that Shamar v'Zachor b'dibur echad. God said them simultaneously. It is impossible to have the Zachor, to have the remembrance, to have the beauty, to have the romance, to have the family, the community, the spirituality of Shabbos without the don'ts. It doesn't work that way. We've seen it throughout our history. You know, now at the time of iPhones and technology, many people have called for one day a year or one day a month to be unplugged, to get off your iPhone, to get off all electronics, and just to focus inward. But it hasn't really worked. Because first of all, what does it help? It's like an alcoholic not drinking one day a year, and then the rest of the year while he drinks feeling good about it. But more importantly, you decide you're going to be unplugged for one day a year. But then you have to text your friend for a favor. Or you want to drive. Why shouldn't I text my friend? Because some guy said that it should be a day of unplugged. Or you want to go celebrate a party out. You want to go watch a movie. There's one show you want to watch. You say Friday night. We're all doing dinner at home every week. But then your kid says, Dad, I would love to, but I can't this week. I have a date with this beautiful girl and I'd be stupid to give it up. Or your daughter comes and says, oh, that's great, but there's a great party with all my friends. Can't we start next week so I could just be with my friends? You wouldn't give up such a great party. Or there's a test, the SATs. The moment you give up the don'ts, the moment you give up the guarding Shabbos, there is no remembering Shabbos. And we've seen it through our history. In the 1950s, there was a segment of Judaism which decided to allow its members to drive to shul on Shabbos. And it wasn't because they didn't want to keep Shabbos, but they figured they lived further away. Maybe if they could drive to shul and be together on Shabbos, then they would celebrate more with community. It would be beautiful. Their intentions were right. But how many of their grandchildren are celebrating Shabbos and keeping Shabbos now? And that's the message that we sing in Lecha Dodi. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Hishmiyanu kelam yuchad. Tell us the rabbis that why do we say in Exodus, Zachor, remember, and in Deuteronomy, Shamor, because there's both said simultaneously. One without the other doesn't work. There's a whole discussion in the Gemara. What happens if someone goes into the forest or wherever it may be, he gets lost, and he forgets what day of the week it is? When does he celebrate Shabbos? So there's one opinion that says, the moment you realize you don't know what day it is, count 6 days, and on the 7th day you have Shabbos. Another opinion says, no. Start Shabbos from day 1 and then count 6 days. But none of the rabbis discuss the circumstances of, imagine how lost someone has to be that he doesn't know what day of the week it is. They don't even discuss that. You know why? Because throughout our history, no matter where, when, and what, a Jew knew. Shabbos came and everything stopped. Shabbos came, we celebrated the beauty, the delicacies, the family, the community, the love. And we guarded the Shabbos from all the don'ts, what the Torah tells us. And the truth is that it's the same way with everything in God, in Judaism, and in the world. You can't have a yes without a no. There is no way to have Zachor without Shamor. So many Jews say, Rabbi, I love the culture of Judaism. I love the chopped liver. I love the herring. I love the social justice part of it. I love doing tikkun olam. I love helping others. I love celebrating family. I love bagels and lox. I love cheese blintzes. I even love matzah. Apple and honey. But Rabbi, why the don'ts? And the answer, of course, is because history has proven us, as God said when he gave the 10 Commandments, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. There is no way to separate the two. And that's what we need to understand. That if it doesn't come from a godly place, the don'ts, that I don't drive on Shabbos, that I don't watch TV while I'm having Shabbos dinner with my family, that I don't text my friends and do business deals while I'm celebrating the time with the family, with community, with godliness, then there is no hope for the Zachor. You know, there's this old joke about this guy who comes into shul on Shabbos, and he's sitting next to his friend, and his friend tells him, you know, I have a Jaguar. It's a beautiful car, but I'm getting tired of it. I much prefer to get a new car. I want to sell it. So his friend looks at him and he says, Nisht of Shabbos Geret, which means not to talk on Shabbos because you're not allowed to do business, but how much do you want? So the guy says back to him, Nisht of Shabbos Geret, not to speak on Shabbos, I want $50K. So the guy says back to him, Nisht of Shabbos Geret, I'm going to speak to my wife after Kiddush when I come home, and tonight by Shalosh Shudas, by the evening prayers, when I come before Shabbos ends, I'll tell you. So he comes back, goes home, he speaks to his wife, he comes back, and after Mincha they're sitting at Shalosh Shudas, still Shabbos, and he turns to his friend, he says, Nisht of Shabbos Geret, not to talk on Shabbos, but I want to buy it. And the guy looks back at him and says, Nisht of Shabbos Geret, I already sold the car. Sometimes we don't realize that the spirit without the law and the law without the spirit can't exist. Of course, if we only had the rigid parts of Shabbos, but we didn't have the spiritual, celebratory, family, delicious delicacies, queen and king, prince and princess, it wouldn't work. But if you don't have the don'ts, it doesn't work either. So I encourage all of you, and I've said this before, you know, one of the hardest things of the pandemic on Bernie and I has been that we've missed our Shabbos with our community, but more than anything, we've missed our Friday night dinners with so many of our dear friends. Many of you who know us know that every Friday night we have 30, 40 people, 50 people for dinner, different families, friends. So many of our dearest friends have been made through our Shabbos dinner. And we have a 5-course meal, and we have good scotch, and delicious homemade food, and l'chaim, and we sing songs. But I've always told many of you at those Friday nights, look, I don't know if you can keep the whole Shabbos. At least you can't start that way, it's so hard. But every moment of Shabbos you keep is a moment you kept the commandment. If it's an hour, if it's it's 2 hours, if it's just night, I said, why don't you try when you come home Friday to light the Shabbos candles, and then once Shabbos comes in, Friday night at least till after dinner, don't watch a game during dinner. Don't put on the TV. Don't have your cell phone next to you. Tune out and keep the shamor of Shabbat for those 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It's not going to be the whole Shabbat, but the value you'll get then, and slowly you'll increase. And those minutes you'll keep Shabbat. They'll be the greatest gift to you and your family. Shabbat, well, it's not Shabbat yet, but I hope you have a great rest of the week and a beautiful Shabbos, and the do's and the don'ts, the yes and the no's, stay part of our Jewish life. Have a great day.